I'm going to dive into the dominant performances of the UConn women over FSU and Louisville, as well as looking ahead to other recruits. Olivia Vukosa has signed, but could Jersey Robinson and Addison Bjorn be close behind? You're on the Hoops Gap on Big East Energy Network.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Yeah. UConn, baby. Home of the champions. Let's go.
Welcome to the Hoops Gap Pod. Let's get Tee Baker in here and get his mic unmuted. Where is he? There he is. T, great to have you on the show as always on the Friday Hoops Gap Women's Edition. So the women have looked fantastic to start. We have dominant performances. I would say the Louisville game was a little uneven, but I mean, they still looked very good. The Florida State game kind of gave a pretty full picture of what this team can look like when it plays on all cylinders for pockets. My first impression of Blanca Quiñones is she's so much bigger than I imagined when you see her on screen, essentially. What were your thoughts with kind of the start of the season, and then we'll get into specifics.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, the Sarah Strong piece is just coming to my mind first. Like, I feel like what we're seeing from her is really just dominance when she's on the floor, and that's the first thing that comes to mind is like, damn, like Sarah Strong is pretty unstoppable. And then it's the depth that we've talked about before. I think it's like the luxury that this team has is there is the ability to have so many different rotations, have someone like Blanca step in for Sarah if she needs time on the bench. And I think for me, it's like, it just speaks to how they can preserve their starters and their stars. Sarah Strong played, I think it was like 23 minutes in that FSU game, and her stat line was someone who played a full 40. You know what I mean? She's incredibly efficient.
Right.
And the way that the team is locked in on the defensive end is reminiscent of some really special UConn teams we've seen.
Yeah, 1,000%. A name that comes to mind right away with this team that I think most people, including when we started talking about her potential to transfer here, and I'm not talking about Sarah Williams. We're talking about Kayleigh Heckel. She's been more than what people expected, I think, especially the folks around. Like, why are you going after her? You're bringing in Khalees Fisher. You have KK Arnold. You have Ashlynn Shade. Like, do we need another guard? Like, I kept on hearing that. Do we need another guard? Don't we need more bigs? Like, she's kind of proving that probably shouldn't tug at Superman's cape. Like, Geno kind of knows what he's doing, and his staff.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting. I think, after the FSU game in the press conference, Geno sort of was talking about Kayleigh Heckel. There was a lot of questions about like, wow, she's, clearly she's had good minutes on the floor. And he talked about she wasn't super sought after in the recruitment process out of high school for UConn. And I think that, that the piece that stuck out to me was Geno kind of like lifted the curtain on like, she's a player that plays super fast. We were like, should we, shouldn't we, are we ever going to be able to kind of stop the engine and get her to kind of play in control? And you still see that speed with her. And sometimes, there's a couple drives where she just drives in and throws the ball up, because it's kind of like a bowling ball situation with her, I think. But, I think what is impressive about her so far is how she uses her minutes to make an impact on the floor. I think a player of her caliber could be a starter at most programs. And I think that ability to sidestep, and you bring up that point about the guards, like, I don't know if I'm fully, past that thinking process of like, can all these guards fit in the long term? Like, we don't know what's going to happen in the off season. Like, in terms of will someone like Khalees Fisher, knowing she's behind KK for another year, behind Kayleigh Heckel, like, will she stick around and develop? That's, I think, UConn's traditional way in how they've built dominant programs is that development step of you start here. Sue Bird didn't start in her first year. You know what I mean? Like, some of the greatest players who've played at UConn followed that trajectory. My question is, can that be sustained in the transfer portal era? And I think that's the question that UConn faces.
Yeah, I think, we can get into the economics of it later in the show. But I think from a perspective of if you're really, it's it's a long-term development plan versus short-term gains. And what I mean by that is there's two schools of thought. Your brand or your ability to get better and develop is based off of the minutes that you're on the floor and how people see that, the NIL brand deals that come with that, et cetera, right? And just getting to be a better player. So there's one school of thought that says if you stay with UConn, even if you have to wait your turn for a year or even two to get substantial minutes, you're going to be better in the long run because of the just think about it from a perspective of the network of UConn women's players that are connected at the WNBA level and the unrivaled, et cetera. And that's never going to change, so if you transfer out to go chase minutes or even maybe NIL money someplace else, you don't necessarily lose that, but you kind of do. You know what I mean? Like you lose a piece of it because you took a shortcut that others really didn't. And I think that's part of it. And I think that's part of the sell is like, okay, yeah, does it suck to sit behind a better player or someone that maybe you think you're better than for a couple of years because they have more experience? Yes. But if you have that long-term mindset, maybe it works out better. And I don't know which is the right way.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying if player A decides to take that shortcut in their estimation or just leaves, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just a different path. And we may start seeing a little more of that, but I think it's still rare at UConn to see someone leave. Didn't Caden Samuels leave? But that was the only one. And you would think that it'd be more considering how many players didn't play substantial minutes on a championship team last year.
For sure. And yeah, Cadence was the only one who did. And she's a starter now for NC State. We've seen her have some really strong minutes against some top competition if you've been watching those NC State games. But yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think that part of UConn's recruiting strategy and what's been successful for them is sharing that development pathway. Like I remember an interview with Nafisa Collier, but like, why did you choose UConn? You could have gone anywhere. You could have started because she was on her first year was the 2016 team. Like she wasn't a starter, she wasn't going to be a starter and she knew that, but she chose it because she said it was a business decision because this was the best team that could prepare me for the next level, so these, kids coming out of high school and figuring out what they want to do with their lives. It's like, if you stay at a program like UConn, even if you're not getting the amount of minutes you get elsewhere, you're getting that experience of developing under that system. And you're getting the opportunity to be part of the biggest women's basketball brand, even if you're not the face of it.
Yeah, and to your point about Fee, does she start unrivaled with Breanna Stewart if she went to someplace else or if she transferred out? There's no way. Like that just isn't in the cards. So I think some of it is just a business decision.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know the financials and I don't know who knows the financials about what these NIL deals look like. I mean, it's hard to know what is being offered at different spaces. Like for me, that's what makes some of the recruiting conversation so different now is like, it's not like, oh, I want to play for this coach or, oh, I want to play in this conference. It's a combination of that and what's going to set me and my family up financially. So it's a whole other ball game.
It is, and it's also about funnily enough, it's all about to change again because NIL is no longer going to be about NIL. It's going to be about the house revenue sharing and how much money is each athletic department going to allocate to each university's programs. And as you know, at UConn, the women's program is more successful than the men's program. It also is when you think about the dollars and cents of what it potentially costs for a player to come play at UConn when we're talking about just rev share, not whether they can get brand deals. It's probably going to, I personally think, sorry, I don't mean to crash my mic into everybody. I personally think the distribution of that is going to be uneven. And I mean that in respect of it'll be equal to based off of what it costs. Like if someone's got to figure this out. If a shooting guard costs X in women's college basketball, it's going to cost Y in men's college basketball. So I think they're going to do some type of share where if it's $12 million is going to the basketball programs and it's split, I don't think it's going to be a 6 million even, because it's just it just wouldn't make sense in the respect of, I don't think you're going to have to spend as much money on the women's side to fill 14, 15 player roster as you will on the men's. That's not my rule. That's just my opinion. That's what I think is going to end up happening.
Well, I mean, it comes down to, the multi-billion-dollar media deal for men's March Madness that, brings in the units,
Sure.
like
Yep.
I think on the men's side, I don't know, it's like what, $1 million a game that you play, and then it's close to it in the NCAA.
Yeah, I think so.
For the
Somewhere
women's
in that
side,
range.
it's about 100,000. So that, like, if you look at that scale difference, like what these teams are bringing into their conferences, what they're bringing into their universities, like that's going to change what they can and are willing to invest. That's just the kind of the basic economics of it from my perspective. But I think you bring up a good point. UConn isn't paying their football team like the same levels that South Carolina is, that these LSU is, right? So I think that in some ways is an advantage. Like more of the higher percentage of the revenue certainly is going to basketball than it is at those schools, and then it becomes like, okay, so are we competing? Are we talking about the same numbers as what South Carolina can offer, or are we talking about more? And that to me is kind of the numbers I would love to see.
Yeah, no. So it's a great conversation. So like really quick, just looking at 2025 on the men's side, the Big East won 9 units, and so that was an $18 million payout, right? So it's actually $2 million. So basically $2 million per win, if you will, right, per unit. So how many units you end up getting, I think it was a little less than that on the Big East side, but that's the breakdown. I think that was a combination of ACC and Big East, for everyone's information. So if it's obviously less on the women's side, then obviously that money is not going to be not going to be paid out equally. So to your point, that's absolutely correct. The other side of it is NIL money is going to come from brand opportunities, and I think at UConn, because it is the biggest women's basketball brand, you're going to have, outside of just your rev share that you get every 2 weeks or monthly or however they do it, there's going to be opportunities because of the markets that you're around and because of the legacies that Paige, AZ, and others have put forth. Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Maya Moore, Nafisa, like everybody that's involved in UConn women's basketball. Even when Geno retires, you can probably still call up Geno and be like, "Hey, man, I have this brand. What do you think about it?" "Oh yeah, that'd be great." They worked with us in the past. Like, so you just don't have that other places. I know Dawn is absolutely on the forefront of this at South Carolina. I know LSU is in the mix with a ton of stuff with NIL, with when Angel Reese was there and others. But it's going to be an interesting dichotomy between how much you're getting paid rev share wise and what the NIL brand opportunities are going to be. So that's going to be really interesting in a couple of years. So that leads us into recruiting. UConn is in the mix. They just signed Olivia Vukosa. That's official. But they're still in the mix for 2 other top 10 recruits. One is Jerzy Robinson, and the other is Addison Bjorn. What are your thoughts about the 2 of them? And then I'll give you some little ins and outs that I've heard about the 2 of them.
Yeah, well, first, just to speak to the Vukosa part, like, I saw her post game after the banner raising game, just standing next to her in back. I was like, damn, she's taller than I thought. It was almost like jarring, and just the presence that's going to be like for UConn. First, she's just an exciting player, and it was exciting to see her connect with her new teammates for next year. I think for Jerzy Robinson and Addison Bjorn, like, for me, they're the 2 biggest recruits on the table, I think, still for UConn. Jerzy Robinson coming in at number 5, Bjorn at number 10. I think for me, what sticks out about both of them is they both have USA basketball experience in common. And we know that the pipeline of USA basketball players that have come to UConn and how connected Geno is with having built the brand that is USA basketball, right? Having been the Olympic coach for 2 cycles, the most of any coach, but also the amount of players that have developed in that system. So we know that UConn has their eyes on those teams, as do most teams around the country. There's an incredibly strong developmental grassroots girls basketball process for USA basketball. So I think that's the first thing that sticks out. These two have competed together already on USA basketball, have won together already on USA basketball. So I don't know. Does that make them a package deal? Maybe that would be nice if that's what UConn's going for. I remember when Paige like kind of lobbied to get AZ to UConn. So sometimes it can work. And again, USA basketball teammates, they knew each other before. So, I mean, I'm always thrown off because UConn doesn't do like those like Jersey / Jumbotron mascot pictures. So all I've seen from Jersey is that she has one in South Carolina and one in LSU. And I was like, dang, does that mean, those are her top two? But I don't know. It's hard she's been pretty quiet about the whole process, besides letting us know that her top three are South Carolina, LSU, and UConn.
I could be wrong, and listen, I've been wrong on stuff on the podcast in the past. So take this with a grain of salt. I've told you pre-show that my Big East men's and recruiting contacts on the men's side are a little stronger, but I have heard and have done a little digging that both Jersey and Addison are heavy UConn leans. Things could change like the wind blows in recruiting, because we're still talking about young women and young men who, may be telling a recruiting expert that, yeah, I'm going to go to UConn. And then something happens that changes that. What I don't know, but anything could happen, Yeah. But I have heard that. And I think this is the question that I have for you based off of that. The reason why I've heard that is because on the anti-UConn side or the anti-Geno side, it's being used against him that, listen, he's not going to be there through your entire from this class. A lot of people don't think on the negative side that he's going to finish through, like when Olivia Vukosa is a senior and Jersey's a senior and Addison's a senior. But internally, those same recruits are actually talking to each other and saying, wouldn't it be pretty cool to be like the last title group under Geno Auriemma, and play at UConn and have that kind of, whatever that would be. I don't know if you would call it an aura effect of that. So what are your thoughts on that? Like both on what's being said against and what's being said for?
Yeah. I mean, I tend to think about the piece of how it could be a recruiting disadvantage more. So it's an interesting conversation. Like for me, no matter what, like Geno can't coach forever. One of these classes is going to be his last one. So
sure.
Committing to a school, not knowing if your head coach is going to be there the whole time could be risky, and not knowing what's going to come after also could be risky. You could also transfer after that. Like that, those are all things that are on the table and that are realities that programs have to face when they're especially when their Hall of Fame head coaches leave, right? We saw these similar things at Rutgers and Tennessee. Like it changes the calculus of what you're considering for your college experience. But in terms of like that being a mindset that high school athletes are thinking about, like I definitely think that could be part of the equation, especially because these players, again, have competed together before. They have been teammates. They have chemistry. So teaming up on the number one team in the country, like Geno Auriemma obviously is part of the equation, but more so UConn is the top team right now in the country and they're the defending national champions. You want to go play where you can win. And that's what UConn is offering at this point. And it's going to impact their ability to recruit in a positive way.
Yeah, I can see both sides of it. I think it makes more sense that you would use it as a negative. But I think what's interesting is the positive of that, because if you're going to be a freshman next year and Geno stays throughout that term, so to speak, right? We'll use a political term, that 4-year term. That would be a really cool thing, is to be his last like class, essentially,
Yeah.
right? I think past this year is when that would work even more. That, oh man, he's not going to be there, in 2031 or whatever it is. Because that's more realistic. I think he legitimately could basically coach for the rest of this decade, and then walk, coast into the sunset, drinking wine with Kathy, and Meg Colmo and all the other greats. You know what I mean? So like, do you understand what I mean? Like, I think that's more feasible than to kind of say, well, you don't know if your coach is going to be there. This recruiting cycle. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
no, I mean, definitely. And it comes down to, like you said, these are like 18 to 22-year-olds figuring out what they want to do. Anything can change, right? So, but for me, like, I think the last Geno Auriemma recruiting class is already here, to be honest. And I've said
Really?
this before on the show. I think it's Sarah's class. Um, I'm just basing it on that's when Geno's contract ends. And I think he's at the point where it's like, I don't know. It was funny after the banner raising ceremony. Everyone was like, "What's it feel like this time?" And he's like, "It's just all a lot at this point." Like, I don't know if the highs feel as high for him anymore. And same thing in Tampa last year. He was like, "I took a walk this morning." He's like, "It doesn't really matter to me if we win again, but I want it for these kids." Like, he's always
Right.
in that mindset of like, these titles aren't about me. That's why we put the names on the banners and in the Worth practice facility. Like, it's about them. So I don't know. I'm beginning to see the wind down. And I don't want it to be the case, like, but I'm just starting to feel like, you know what? I think he might just have like 2 more years left and that's it. Um,
Maybe.
but when you keep landing the big recruits, because this is what people said after Paige, is what people said after AZ, and now I'm saying it after Sarah. So there's always this thing like, you got the top recruit, you want to stay till they finish it out. But when you never stop getting the top recruit, maybe you just stay forever. Who knows?
Maybe. I think what's interesting too is if without actually having talked to folks, I think if I look at this from the perspective of just the behavior of players when they're, like you mentioned this about like how UConn doesn't do all like the Jersey stuff and the Jumbotron stuff. I think there's a better likelihood of UConn getting Addison than Jersey. And I say that just because I don't know, like just the way that she's been, this is not anything from any, credible source. This is just my opinion. Like looking at, how she, when she was at the South Carolina football game, like, there are things that like that South Carolina can provide that UConn just can't, in that respect. And if that's where she wants to go, then that's just, I say this and people are going to get mad at me, but like you really can't go wrong. Like if you're a recruit right now and your choices are, her choices are South Carolina, UConn. Who's the third?
LSU for
Yeah,
for Jersey. Yeah.
For our girl Kim.
Yeah. Who is a damn good recruiter, or her team is. I don't know, but
yeah,
they land some hot top
probably a good tipper as we've talked about.
Yeah.
But just think about that. Like it goes both ways on the men's and women's side. Like if you're a women's basketball player right now in high school and your choices are go play for Geno Auriemma, Dawn Staley, or Kim Mulkey, can you really choose poorly here? Probably not. No.
Nope.
Like they're all great in their own right. So I know that's a real like politically correct, like, staying above the fray comment, but like it's also the truth. Like, don't you know what I mean? Like, don't at me and be like, oh, how could you compare Geno to the other two? It's like he would probably say it. Like, if we're being honest,
named have won the last 3 national championships. LSU in 23, South Carolina 24, UConn 25. So you literally have offering you the last 3 national. That's pretty good. You should feel pretty good about yourself, Jersey Robinson. Like that's
we'd love to cover you, but if you're not going to be here, I will wish you the best. Like, good luck. I mean, it's good for you. Like I'd say that with every time we talk about a high school recruit, I never wish them like ill will if they don't pick UConn. It's like so dumb. Just let it go.
That's just like that's that type of behavior I just don't love. Like it's just when people kind of get mad at like kids for picking school. It's like you don't know what's going on in their lives or why they made it. Also, you don't know them. Like just stay out of it. Like of course it's disappointing when you don't get a top recruit, but don't let it out on the kid.
No.
Especially
because and also too, like we already landed Olivia Vukosa. And if you think about this team, like I'm not saying this because I don't want them to come, but like, do we really need them? Like at this point, does Geno need to add the another 2 guard, the big guards? Like he really doesn't. Like based off of who's already here, and if they retain everybody, they're not losing much.
Well, and also after Olivia was recruited, that left just 2 scholarship spots. So either it goes to both of them and one of them, and you get someone from the transfer portal, or you stay at 14. Geno, I think this is his first year having a roster this big. I think he prefers a smaller roster. So, your point is well taken there. It's like, do you want to get up to 15 every year? Or are you comfortable with like 14 and we've seen them go to the transfer portal for really specific purposes over the past couple years. And I think that's the major difference for me. It's like, you used to develop your team and you would try to fill gaps with freshmen, but then they have a growth curve. Now you're like, we need a post player. We're getting Sarah Williams. We have another potential All-American right here, right now. And I think that's what's exciting about it. And also what makes it infinitely more complicated.
Yeah. And also like, to your point, like, I think it's basically like, we're getting close to Thanksgiving here. It's like, this is just the gravy on top. Like if they get these two recruits or one of them, fantastic. But to me, it's not going to make or break whether UConn is competitive or is competing for national championships the next couple of years because of all the work that they've done. Because I've had multiple people be like, well, how come they haven't signed it? This is before Olivia. How come they haven't signed anybody on the women's side? And I'm like, do you know that the roster is like really stacked right now, right? And it's not like they're all seniors. Right. So these kids aren't going anywhere if they're doing their jobs and retaining them, because I think that's also part of the wind down that you're seeing from Geno is that, with men's and women's basketball now, you have to re-recruit your players constantly. Yeah. And when you have a team like this that is super talented, that, like he's not losing 7 players, like they're losing 2, like letter of the law. Could lose more in the transfer portal, but if you're re-recruiting everybody, that's a lot of work. It just is.
Yeah. And I mean, he sits in that same press conference again, where he just looked like, yep, we got another national championship, and I'm not meaning to imply it doesn't matter to him or it wasn't significant. I'm just like, it feels different when you're, in pushing towards your 70s or 70 at this point, and you've done this so many times and you're at the end of your career, than it does for like the individual student athletes who like built that experience. But he also said it's just really hard to push players. It's really hard. There's this give and take you have with players where you're trying to get the best out of them, and that's really hard work. And he said some days it's like, that's the part that I'm like, I don't know if I can keep doing this, so I just, either whatever he decides, like I've said before on the show, if it were me, I would already be out. I'd be retired. Like, get me out of here, and I don't want to work anymore. But he's a hardworking man. He loves what he loves what he does.
I know. I get it. Last thing,
need the money. Put it that way.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I wish that was all of our problems, right?
Right.
So upcoming games, you have Ohio State, Michigan, and then Utah. So we have 3 non-conference games before you get into your first Big East game on November 30th against Xavier. So let me ask you a funny question that I'm sure UConn fans will want to throw their remote or turn this off based off of, because they get so frustrated when I bring this up, is how mad on a scale of 1 to 10 are people people trying to watch the UConn women's game on Sunday the 16th when it's on Peacock at noon? Not
going to go over well. Not going to go over well. Not well received.
No.
I think and I have a lot of the streaming services. I have Peacock for a lot of shows, so I'm already there, but I think that, there's a lot of that this year. Like, I couldn't watch Wednesday's game because it was on True TV or TNT, and that's not part of the streaming packages I have. Like, there's always a game.
I watched that. Yeah.
It feels like there's a game you're not going to have no matter who you are. So it's kind of like disappointing, but especially at noon on a Sunday, like that's prime UConn fan base watching time. Like, come on now.
It's true. It's true. I mean, I do feel bad for folks that have been watching, the team for 30, 40 years, and they're like, can't even get to watch this game. But if you look at the bright side of things, Peacock is a pretty good streaming service. To me, it's one of the underrated ones next to Apple TV, because there's just some really good shows and content on there, and because it's backed by NBC, it's a really good broadcasting product. It's not something that you would put it on and it's ESPN Plus and you have the, no disrespect, but you have the audio departments of each individual school kind of fitting the bill for those. You actually, NBC is their broadcast is really good. So I'm not getting paid by Peacock, nor am I getting paid by NBC, because if I was, we probably would have a lot more money in our network. But if you get a chance, go pay for Peacock. There's some really good shows. You can watch all the games. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just a good sign for UConn, for women's basketball. Like I spoke with the Big East commissioner Val Ackerman before the season, and that's a huge sign of growth. That's how programs are making enough money to pay their players rev share. It's all coming from TV deals. So that's kind of what, like, the price we pay is partially helping pay them in some ways, right? So not that is something that is our responsibility, but it also signals that these games, there's demand for them, that's a good time slot on Peacock. It's like college football, time slot on a Saturday too, sometimes. Right. So a lot of eyes on it. And I think that that's a good sign ultimately.
Yeah, no, I agree. Even if on a Sunday, like, football's on no matter what, so to have that be there, and hopefully they get good ratings. I think it's worth you spending a little extra money to watch a few games there, especially if you watch both, because I think the men are on Peacock a few times this year as well. All right, so it's a great show today. I really appreciate you jumping on with me, T. It's a wait and see aspect on the recruits. We don't have to wait and see on this team because they pick right back up on the 16th, like we said, against Ohio State. And I'm just really looking forward to continuing watching this team develop. And I'm very excited about Blanca Quiñones. We didn't even talk about her, and we can the very next show, because I have a feeling that as she starts to get her legs underneath her, she's going to be doing a lot of things that we're like, whoa, there's going to be a lot of wow factor with Blanca.
For sure. Plenty to talk about. We don't all have to cover it here. We got all season.
That's right. We'll keep them wanting more, T. That's the trick. We'll see you next time on the Hoopscat Pod. For T. Baker, I'm Mark Zanetto. We'll see you soon.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it.